What is going on, everyone? Chris with Journals, Comics, and Pop Culture. Today's video, we are taking a deep dive into the current state of comic book speculation, and we're going to be going over this Facebook post, pondering some really important questions. If you guys aren't subscribed to the channel, please take some time to do so. And for those that have been with me for a while, I want to say that this is my first official video that I'm recording in some months here due to uh, personal reasons and health issues, and I'm just happy to be back. Although I'm not in front of the screen, I'm still sitting here giving you guys the narrative to a really awesome topic of discussion today. So thank you all for just sticking with my channel through everything. But with that being said, let's get into this. This was from a post in a Facebook comic book group talking about their, you know, questioning the current state of speculation and why it seems it's such a, divisive piece within comic book collecting today. So let's go ahead and read what this individual posted. I've been collecting for 2 years and I've learned a lot about the comic book community, but there's one thing that's always confused me, and that is why comic book speculation is so hated. Like, speculation has been around for 50 years or less. It's even been around since the first price guide for comics. So, this is very interesting because I just recently re uploaded a video, I believe last week, where I talked about this, where I talked about how people have this false idea that speculation is something that's brand new. And I talked about how speculation has been around for over 50 years. This guy's right. I don't know if you watched my video that I posted or and they came and posted this, but this guy's absolutely right. Speculation is nothing new. And for somebody that's been in comic books for just 2 years, especially post COVID, that could be troubling to for me. I'd have to question, like, how much does this person really understand? But he at least has the knowledge to know that speculation has been around for 50 plus years. And I talked about in that last video how everyone has this misconception of what a speculator is. And I said in that video, and I'm going to say it again, if you care to any extent about the future value of a comic book, whether or not you have the intent to sell, whether or not you're holding them for a short hold or a long hold, or you're going to pass them down to your kids, none of that matters. The only thing that matters is if you care to any extent that the comic books that you purchase or that you own will have a greater future value than they do today, you are to some extent speculating. Like I said, even if you don't ever plan to sell and you plan to pass them down, if you care in any capacity about the future value of those comics, you are speculating to some degree. And that is a simple fact. If you want to argue in the comments, please go ahead and I will respect your opinion. I love hearing different opinions, but it's a simple fact by clear definition. Now, that doesn't mean that speculating isn't much more nuanced, because it is. And this is where I think this individual's question comes into play. The thing that is very, very new is how we speculate. There are much more new age, hows of how we are speculating. And that's where a lot of hate comes into play. Now, before I even add to that question or add to that point or answer that point, let's go ahead and look at some of these comments here and just see what other comic collectors are saying regarding this individual's post. And then I'm going to give you all my reply. So John here says, collecting is a fun hobby. Speculating is a fool's errand and a guaranteed way to go broke. Now, I disagree with John because he's basically putting speculation in a box. There's where I do agree with him is there are certain ways of speculating where it's going to be a rough ride down, right? But you can't sum speculating up to say, it's a fool's errand, because if that's the case, then anybody that is holding on to blue chip keys right now that are valued more than what they paid, you're not speaking to those individuals because those individuals speculated in a way that was very much more uh, profitable, a profitable errand, so to say, in a much more um, conservative errand and not so risky of an errand. They're smart investments, right? But let's move on. Stephen here says, just my oh well, actually, I don't know if we're gonna read this. Let, I don't know if we're gonna read this comment. It's too long. We might come back to it. Let's look at what Dan here has to say. The only problem I have with speculators is when they go and buy up every available copy of a book so no one else can get it. I don't care if they want to pick up an extra copy or two, but don't be a jerk about it. Some of us just want to read the story, and if it becomes a valuable book, great. Now, I've talked about this over the years on my channel. This is there's nothing wrong with a purchaser going into a comic book store and picking up every copy off the shelf and buying them. There's no law against that, but I agree with the sentiment, and I do believe it's up to the um, comic book shop to say, well, I'm going to put a limit on this, or I'm going to let you buy two or three at cover price. But because this is a hot speculative book, they're already going up on eBay for $20-$25. So I'm going to let you buy two or three at cover price. But after that, I'm going to charge you $15 a book or something like that. I think it's fair for the comic book shop owner to get their money either way. And I also think it's not fun for somebody to go into a comic book shop on New Comic Book Day Wednesday. Maybe they bring their kids or their friends, and they're like, "Oh, there's no more." Now, don't get me wrong. Yeah, have a pull list. If you just want to read, have a pull list. You guys have heard me. If you watch my channel, you heard me argue all these points. Nobody should be crying like a baby here if they didn't get their book because they just want to read it. But I get it. This is much more nuanced of a conversation too, and I'm not going to dive too deeply into that today either. All right, let's look at what. Oh, we got a good friend here. Good old Joe here says the vast majority of people do not know how to speculate correctly. They are unaware of the risks, keyword there, risks, and don't have an exit strategy. They just think they can buy something and then sell it for more later, but it's far from that simple. I mean, again, this is very kind of a broad statement, but it brings up the key thing. You got to know what you're doing. And there's obviously high risk, low risk. Absolutely. And that's for any investment. And this goes back to stuff that I've said on my channel for years too. The fallacy, the lie, the false idea that just because it's a comic book, it's worth money. So many people get caught up on that hype. Oh, it's a comic book, it's a collectible. I'm going to be able to make money off of it. That is completely false. And Joe here provides a groundwork frame of how to not fall victim to that. Absolutely. Um, I already read Chris's comment here, and I completely disagree. I'm going to read it again. No offense, but 2 years is not enough to learn about the hobby. Well, I mean, I mean that's we can argue that, but here, speculating hasn't been around that long. I've been collecting on and off and reading since the 1980s, and I could tell you that speculation really took off when the first Iron Man movie was released and the Key Collector app was born. Everything is a key, and everything seems to be optioned. Chris is basically completely wrong here. Respectfully, Chris, I think Chris has even watched some of my videos before, and I agree with some of the things that he says in this group. He's very active, but I disagree here because is Chris just completely forgetting about the speculative boom of the early '90s? Because boy, that happened, right? So yeah. I'm not going to go too much into that, but again, what he's talking about of what happened after the first Iron Man movie, completely different. And I'm going to read a couple more comments, then I'm going to get to that, folks. Let's see. Let's read what Kenny has to say here. It's a bunch of bitter old collectors complaining because the hobby has changed. It's absolutely ridiculous. If new collectors don't pick up the hobby, then comics will eventually go the way of Beanie Babies, model trains, and postage stamps. Older collectors should be embracing new collectors, even if you completely disagree with the way they collect, because without new blood entering the hobby, it will die. P.S. I've been collecting since 1992. Kenny makes an absolute great point. Although he's pretty harsh with saying, oh, it's a bunch of bitter old collectors. Like, that's pretty harsh. But there is a harsh reality that we all need to accept here. And that's the fact that Kenny is ultimately right. And I've said this in videos before too. I talked about how last year Comic Tom brought the Comic Cron stats. It was roughly a year ago when Comic Tom brought the stats out and said, if you look at the percentage the of the primary market, not the secondary market, the primary market, 80% was variance. So what does that mean? It means that for all of you readers out there that still go to your comic shop on New Comic Book Wednesday, that still have your pull list, that still read the new Batman or the new Spider-Man or whatever it may be, variants are keeping the publishers, Marvel, DC, etc., afloat. If there wasn't this crazy variant market where people will buy the 1 in 25s or the 1 in 100s and get all gung ho over the new art, the limited new artist cover, most likely the way of the floppy would either not exist or we would be literally down to like 3 titles a month and everything else would be published via trade paperback, graphic novel, digital. The floppy would almost cease to exist if it wasn't for speculative markets. Current speculative markets such as your ratio variance and so forth in your exclusive variants. They're really allowing this stream of revenue to come into the publishers to basically keep the presses afloat. And that's a fact. So even though a lot of us old heads, we don't care about variants like that. If we're reading new comic books, we better care for those buying those books. We don't need to buy into the variant market, but they're allowing us to have that cover A that we could buy for $3.99 every week. Now, with that being said, because we also know that speculation still pertains a lot to the secondary market, right? We speculate on new books. There's a new character, you know, we get that. But I think a lot of where the frustration comes in is pertaining to how we speculate on the secondary market. And this is where I want everyone listening to really pay attention. Speculation is not new. And a speculator isn't just a flipper. A flipper is one kind of speculator. And speculating on movie hype and TV show hype is one type of speculation. That's key. Remember what I said. So there's this broad umbrella of what speculation is and what speculators are. And that go back to the beginning of this video. And then there are subcategories of certain types. Speculators that flip are one type of speculators. And speculating on movies and TV hype and option properties is one type of speculation. And this is where it becomes problematic. And going back to Joe's comment, this is where people don't understand the risk. And this is what's really crippled the current state of comic books, especially as an investment and as a collectible. And this is going to be my final point in this video. And I'm going to explain where we're at right now and how we can move forward in a positive way and hopefully not continue to fall victim to a modern way of speculation. I understand that COVID it it would be interesting to look at where the speculative market based on live action properties would be at today without COVID. Okay, it was already booming. I mean, we've seen that, and I don't think it just started with Iron Man. It took some time to build up. I think for me, when it really started with the Avengers film, when we knew that Thanos was finally coming, I think that really brought a lot of nostalgia back into a lot of collectors that were now seeing these movies, and it brought them back to these amazing storylines and characters like the Infinity Saga. Um, and that's to me where it started booming. And then when you get when we got Guardians a couple years later, which I never collected Guardians of the Galaxy, but after watching that movie, I was like, man, I want to go back to the comic books to look at these characters and so forth. So, we slowly saw it building up and building up and building up, and COVID had nothing to do with it. COVID basically put it on steroids though, because everyone was at home sitting on their internets, a little extra money in their pocket, not doing anything, not taking vacations, whatever it may be. I've talked about that for years now. We're 4 years into this since COVID happened, and we saw it bubble up. We saw it bubbling up, and the COVID boom has now deflated back down. I mean, a lot of books are still sitting at pre-COVID numbers, but the thing is that we've sat We've sat for the last 4 years sitting, seeing Frogman show up in a She Hulk show, seeing these lame characters come up in properties like indie properties that are option, and then somebody ends up paying $500 for a 9.8 just because something gets announced for his option, and then now you can't sell the book for $100. And this is where people are frustrated, especially old heads. I get that there's this kind of, old man yelling at the clouds, oh, I just want the book to collect for my run, or I just want the book to read, and now I can't because speculators are, stop. Because if you cared about the book, you would have cared about it before it got hot. You want, and I will say this, there's a lot of collectors that fake the funk, that truly believe that, if it's not in their collection and now there's hype about it, now they want to be mad that they don't own it, and speculators are driving the value up. But I know that you're happy that the book that you already own in your collection has been driven the value up. I know it. Don't lie. Even if you have no intent to sell it, I know you care that that book is worth more now than what you paid. So thank the speculators for that. But the problem is that there is all this hype to where so many collectors don't see how FOMO and speculating on movie hype and option hype is not going anywhere. And I'm not going to bring numbers up today. I haven't even looked at, I haven't been privy to the market really in a while, 6 to 12 months. I've been dealing with personal life, but it's the same thing now. And for this individual that's been in the collecting for only 2 years, right? Or for individuals that have been collecting for 40 years, like myself almost. If you have been collecting for 2, 3, 4 years, especially since COVID, if you don't understand the way the current live action speculative market works, then fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Like, figure it out, folks. It's not that hard. The FOMO, the thinking that just because something is showing up in a TV show, in a movie, or has been optioned is going to mean that a book is going to be valuable. Stop it. And I can't say it any more nicely. I'm not trying to be drama here. That I'm not diving into that on my channel anymore. I'm here to love the hobby that we're in, and to understand that there again, I go back to the root of it. There's no wrong way to collect. I'm all about speculating on comic books, whether it's long term, short term, whatever. Do what makes you happy, but be smart. We go back to Joe's comment. You gotta understand the risks, and you gotta understand that it's not so black and white. Now, and I'm gonna say this out there. There are people still to this day that are like day traders when it comes to comic books. They will go buy all the books on New Comic Book Wednesday, and they will hype you up. They'll go on Whatnot, they'll go on IG, they'll go on YouTube, or maybe they're store owners. Don't act like store owners don't do the same thing. And they will hype up a book simply because of modern day live action speculation. And my only advice to you all is buy what you love, buy what you like, but you gotta control the FOMO. The majority of books that are gonna be hyped up because of movie hype are gonna crash back down on you, folks. And I'm planning on making a video soon where I dive more into the evolution of movie and live action speculation. I'm gonna break it down. I've talked about that even on my channel for years now, but I'm gonna do a standalone video talking about that. We have to stop acting like comic books gain value because a character shows up in a movie or a TV show. It just doesn't work like that. And even the some of the most popular characters that show up, they're gonna take a hit after the FOMO dies down, after the day trading, short selling dies down. So if you think you're ahead of the game and you're doing it for a short flip and you're gonna make money off of people that are FOMOing out, thinking that they're gonna get rich, hey, if you think it's ethical to do that and that's how you run your business and you're making money in your pocket, I'm not hating that. I'm not here to hate you for that. Because buyers have to be educated. So to end this video, speculating has been around for many, many decades, and it's not going anywhere. Speculating is very, very nuanced. It's not black and white. There are many different ways to speculate. Buying books thinking that they're going to be valuable 50 years from now is a form of speculating. Buying books because you think you're going to get rich because a character is going to show up in a movie or TV show, or it's going to be optioned, that's a form of speculating. And that arena of speculating is where a lot of the big question marks come into play, because there's a lot of risk involved and there's a lot of people that still don't understand that risk and still think that they are infallible. And they think they're just going to get rich off of comic books, when the fact of the matter is, especially for modern comic books, 99% of comic books you buy lose value once you purchase them off the shelf. They don't gain value. And that's a simple fact. So, this has been great, folks. It's been good to talk about comics again. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Again, if you aren't subscribed to the channel, please do so. Be well, and until next time.